All right, in the previous video, we established our background here. I did go back and group these few layers together. I added one called glow. I renamed this layer that we added before, and I went back and actually reverted that to a radial gradient. And it's still using that kind of bluer tone at the very far end. And then at the high end, we're using opacity of 0. The big difference here is that background rectangle. I did go full black on that in the very end. It just made it look a little bit more prominent and like the original that we did. So go ahead and make those changes and you should have something similar to this. Each layer is the size of the canvas, so you can assign them that width and height and should come up with something pretty close to this. So in this video, we're going to start creating the actual lens portion of the camera. So let's go ahead and just take a circle or ellipse tool and use our guides if holding shift while you move this, and you can go ahead and create that base camera lens effect. We're going to start with just basically an off-white color, and it's going to be a large combination of circles to create this. So we'll start there, and what we can do here is maybe group this into its own group called lens. In that first ellipse, we can maybe call it base or whatever you want to call it there. And on this one, I want to set an initial outer shadow just to give this some depth. So this won't be super noticeable, but it will be enough to just give it a little lift off the screen, which is what we're after in this case. And we actually want the angle to be 270 pixels, so it's down at the bottom. It's kind of hard to see, but that's okay. I don't want it to be super noticeable. The offset can go pretty far if you want it to. The radius can be pretty soft. So something like so, just to give it some depth. This is a little light still, so I think I'm going to reconfigure that to be one of these lighter gray tones. Maybe this one here. Okay, so with that established, we can then duplicate that circle again and just resize it a tad just to mimic the one before it. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the actual layer effect on it. I'm going to remove this from its group. We'll delete that one. In fact, I'll remove this one for now and we'll group it again later. So let's just get rid of the groups for now just to make this a little more easy to understand. Okay, so this one, I mean, we can call it whatever you want there, base 2. I want it to be a kind of a thick edge, just so the lens itself has kind of a wider body. So we'll center it, and this one will actually have a gradient going on, and both can actually have a gradient if we want. But we can start real quick to get a gradient in line. You could just start with something similar with the gradient tool, kind of just dragging the full height of the image itself. And if you want to adjust the actual angle, which we kind of do, I want the light to kind of come from the top right. This is kind of the approach we can take there. Great. So if we compare our one before, we've got a similar approach. In this case, the light is below on the second one and the light is above on the first. So maybe we'll mimic that. So we have the light on the first. It's a solid color at this point. I actually want it to be a gradient now. So I'll go back and rechange that and actually swap this to appear that way. And we'll just do it at that same roundabout angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then on the gradient here, we want to swap this one to go to reverse as well. So something like so. So that establishes that kind of depth feel of the initial camera lens. There's quite a few more circles we'll need to create, so we can start there. Looks like I have just 2 outer gray looking circles and then quite a few black ones in between. So let's start with the black next. So go ahead and create that. Just dragging from the center here, holding shift. Great. Okay, and then we can do another gradient here that is way darker. So we'll start with a black shade just to an off black And I want the light to appear on the top right, so I think I'll go like that. So reverse that gradient, and these are all linear gradients at this point. I do want to have a stroke on this as well, so let's add one. And this stroke can be a little bit thicker, maybe 2 points, maybe 3 for good measure. The thing with the stroke is I want it to appear as a gradient as well. So let's go ahead and put the stroke on the outside by clicking this icon here in the align panel. And you can adjust the strokes gradient by getting the gradient tool and then going to the context menu and selecting stroke here. I'm going to just kind of do the same dragging and dropping kind of thing as we did with the fill, but in this case I'm just getting a foundation going. So in this gradient I want it to be reversed, and the very top layer I want to be lighter, I believe, and the bottom will be darker. And we might actually adjust the stroke to be inside, something to that effect. So we can reference our old one here, and this one, the initial layer I guess didn't need a stroke, but I'll go ahead and leave it for now. So I'm going to save that one down, and we'll continue creating more circles just by resizing these a bit more. In this case, I think I'm going to start creating a gradient with a radial style, and the outer edge looks like we're working on our stroke though, so let me go back to our fill first and go back to radial here. We can make this a little bit lighter and possibly reverse these just to get the backwards effect going on. We kind of want this glare on the edge, but not so much in the fill, and you'll see why when we make more shapes as we go. Just want to kind of create that light source on the top right that's really dynamic and really bright. So this one, we want the circles a little bit closer together, and we'll keep swapping the style of fill. So in this case I'm going to reverse this one again and then create one more, maybe very close to the other circle size, because we're getting to where we need to actually create the lens portion. Align these, and maybe you go darker on these colors and reverse this again, and then make sure all these are aligned. So I'm going to shift select each and then align vertically and centered. And I think the second one there needs to actually be reversed, just so we kind of have that transcending gradient going on. Let's see, let's reference our first one just to double check how we did that. Okay, so I added that. Okay, so to make these a little more stand out-ish, I can add a new point at the very edge here. I'm going to add black at the edge and lighten this right at this point. And I think we'll carry on with the same style on the other portions here. So let me grab the second one here and do the same thing. So we're going to add a point here and then make the outer one black, so kind of give it more of a glare look as opposed to just a straight gradient going on. So this one, maybe we'll make more black on the edge. And then this outer one seems a little light to me, so I might go ahead and make it a little bit darker. So from here on, I think we'll adjust this to have the lens coming in the middle, and in the very next video I'll start working on that portion. I think I'm going to increase these real quick first, and I think we're well under our way. The outer edge here seems a little wide, so I might decrease that and increase all of these black circles real quick, and we'll continue on.